embracing risk. That's what's needed to build a successful business coaching practice, and that's what we're discussing on this episode of the Business Coaching Success Podcast. Let's jump in. BJ O'Neill here with the Business Coaching Success Podcast. So glad you're here, where I share with you strategies, tools, and tips to be able to grow your business coaching practice to six figures and beyond as a Christian business coach. Let's jump in. Welcome. BJ O'Neill here. Glad to be with you. It is, July 2024, at least at this recording of this episode. Hard to believe half the year has gone by. We are discussing today a foundational principle in building anything, much less a business coaching practice. That is, embracing risk in starting and growing and developing a successful, profitable business coaching practice. Okay. Now, some people hear the word risk and they're like, "Man, I don't want to risk. I don't want to make the risk. I don't want," which it also oftentimes is exactly what prevents them from achieving, their dreams, their heart's desire, their ideas, things that they've thought about for a long time. Perhaps that's you. Perhaps you love making, adding value to people, helping them. You really want to help others. You just get a lot of value. You love to get paid to do that. Why haven't you started? Well, oftentimes it's like, there's trepidation because of this word risk. Okay, risk is a good thing. Risk is healthy. Risk is necessary. And those that really get where they want to go, they've learned to embrace risk. Now, I am not suggesting that we be irresponsible with risk. We're going to talk about that. So when we talk about risk, exactly what is it? Well, it's essentially the opportunity to experience an undesirable outcome based upon decisions, oftentimes either our own or even just things that we can't control, okay? And so everything in life, first of all, there's going to be risk. When you get in your vehicle and you drive down the road, there's risk that you get into an auto accident, right? Same thing with any transportation, for that matter. There is an element of risk. You can talk about percentages all day long of good, bad, or indifferent, but there's still elements of risk. When you are younger and you start dating and you get married, there's a risk of, getting hurt, right? And so risk is a part of life. And those who constantly push back and they don't embrace it are the ones that miss out, are the ones that, at least as far as I'm concerned, and what I believe, is that I believe God's got a destiny for all of us, but it does require us to trust in Him, put our foot forward, and take an element of risk, okay? And so what does that look like in starting a business coaching practice? Because I'm here to tell you, done correctly, you do want to embrace risk, but you want to learn how to do it in a way that mitigates as much of it as it can, even though you embrace enough to help you grow, which we are going to talk about. Before we do, as believers, as Christians, as Christ followers, risk is actually all throughout the Bible. You look at some of the examples, David and Goliath. We know that story, and we view it as a heroic. But when David put those stones in his sling, he didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And, I would at least guess a little bit that I'm sure there was a little bit of fear, or like, what if I throw this stone at this guy and, he comes charging at me and just wrings my neck? There had to be. He's a human. That's the way humans think. So there has to be an element of that to some degree. Think about when Peter walked on water. Our family goes to the lake all the time, and we talk about this quite frankly. Peter was a human, right? Could you imagine stepping out on the boat, over the boat, and, Jesus is right there, and he's saying, look at me, keep your head up, keep your eyes on me. Even with that, there's an element of risk that I could sink, right? And what happens if he doesn't take the step? Think about that. There's all throughout the Bible, what happens if our foundation of being believers, so much doesn't happen if risk was not embraced. And we're encouraged to take a step of faith, to trust into Him, to cast our cares on Him. And I hope that you do that in this journey. Perhaps you've already started your coaching business. Maybe you're thinking about starting a coaching business, regardless of what it is. So here's a few things I want you to think about. One, here's the importance of taking risks. It is absolutely essential to life and certainly essential to growing a successful business, certainly a business coaching practice. And the first is growth and innovation, is that we grow and we innovate when there is risks available. It forces us to stretch. It forces us to reach. You think about it. If you're doing anything and it's always comfortable, you're not at your best. You're just not at your best. You can look at any athlete. You can look at any business owner, and certainly the big ones. You can look at any of where there's value, and you'll tell in their story, you're going to see an element of risk, of challenge, and reward. Well, we always hear just the reward. Oftentimes we don't examine the risk, but risks helps us grow. Period. Okay. No other way to look at it. Look at all the different things that we have in our culture today. It was because someone took a step of faith and risk to create, to innovate, to grow. And we have cars because of it. We have social media because of it, like it or not. We have the internet because of it, and so on and so on and so on. There's opportunity. When you take a risk, you're going to find opportunity that you cannot see today. When you look at guys like John Maxwell, for instance, I'm a Maxwell certified speaker, founding partner back in 2011. Happy to be affiliated with John specifically. You may or may not know the first event that he ever did took a step of faith. He was going to get into motivational speaking and leadership development. And his very first event, I think it was free, if I recall. And they promoted, invited. 13 people showed up. 13 people. Think what would have happened. I mean, he now speaks to millions of people all over the world, still to this very day. Has written, I think, about 80 books or so. Influenced heads of states, pastors, leaders, CEOs, and so on. If he had not taken a step of faith and risk to do it again, we would not have his voice. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for John. Brendan Burchard, if you're not familiar with Brendan, the number one best motivational speaker and certainly those influencing life coaches. But his story, he took a massive risk. It was not simple, coming from a traumatic car accident and was flat broke. Started to write blogs and books with zero money in an apartment, one-bedroom apartment that looked like it was going nowhere. But he continued to do it. He took risk, one after another. Taking risks also helps you to avoid complacency. This is really big. I talk to guys all the time who are looking to start a coaching practice, okay, at whatever level that it works for them. And I hear this all the time, and they're 45, 55, 60 years of age or whatever. And, life's good, God's blessed them, but they just still feel like that they have a lot to give. They feel very impregnated with ideas and inspiration. They want to help and motivate business owners. They want to help people grow. They want to make an investment in their place in helping their little part in business growth to help the economy and so on and so on. Maybe that's you. And they haven't done it, and a lot of that's because they just haven't taken this step of faith, haven't taken the risk element, and they're currently kind of complacent. There's a little boredom in life. Nothing necessarily wrong with boredom, although I do believe that God's called us to do amazing things. It just requires us to take a step of faith. And so a part of that amazing thing could be, and if you're listening to this podcast, it likely is developing a business coaching practice, okay? So there's opportunities. You can grow. It avoids complacency, but you want to do it at a responsible way, okay? You've got to embrace risk at some level. You want to embrace it. And it's not even just about the financial aspects. There is your time risk, right? There is relationship risk. There is, what if this doesn't work? What if I don't actually want to do this? What if I start this and it doesn't pan out the way I thought and it just doesn't feed me the way that I thought it was going to? Look, it's life. Those things are always on the table and can happen. That's why it's called risk. But you want to assess risk responsibly, okay? So you want to evaluate, number one, is this really for me? Write that out. There's a lot of things that you want to do. Is coaching really for me? Am I the kind of person, how am I wired? I talked to someone yesterday and they're like, I love what you've done and what you have in building a coaching network just for Christian men, and specifically with an entire done-for-you step-by-step approach. And the reason was he absolutely wants to make an investment and help business owners grow. He is a business owner himself. But he says, man, my mind is kind of just like all over the place, a lot. And so guidance, bumper guards, a step-by-step, a systematic approach is absolutely the right thing for me. And so if you're in that same position, that's the kind of thing you need to look for. So if you're starting a business coaching practice, or you want to, and you're like, I really do responsibly need a process and I need a system. Well, if that's you, then it would be irresponsible to take the risk to do it without one, right? Meaning if you just kind of just start going and doing it, your risk level increases highly if you don't have strict structure, systems, processes, and so on. And that's the reason why it's important to evaluate, is this the right fit for me? Is this system the right fit for me? Is this book the right fit for me? Is this curriculum the right fit for me? Like whatever it is that you're going to do and however it is that you're going to do it. Planning and preparation. You want to be able to say, okay, if I'm going to take this step of faith, if I'm going to take this risk, I need to have a plan. I need to be prepared. Structure, system, what's my days look like? How am I going to make this work? Like you have to have some of those things well thought out. And then as you work through all that, again, there's a lot of different ways that you can start a business coaching practice. For instance, we give in our coaching network Christian men a done-for-you process to help you get your leads and prospects, to convert them to clients, and to coach them in a simplistic step-by-step way. If that's you, then now you understand how I'm going to go about doing this because I have a structure, a system, a community, a support, have help, and so on. Well, that mitigates your risk big time when you kind of know what you're walking in, right? But I see it all the time where people step out, they start helping people. There is no structure, there is no system, there's no process. It becomes overwhelming. They lose the client really fast, and it just it's a mess. Why? They really didn't make a plan on how to do it and how to do it accurately and correctly. But when you've thought about it, when you've evaluated it, when you kind of have a structure and a system, when you can see a plan, you're putting some things on paper, then we're taking that and we're going to pray about it. Then we're going to just kind of, just process and pray. And it's not about just like being comfortable with the decision. Actually, I would encourage a little bit of discomfort because that keeps us on our toes. When we get complacent, that's where we make really bad mistakes. So comfort's really not what you're looking for. You're just asking God to bless the plan, the path, the people, everybody that's around you and helping you do what it is that you want to do. So practical steps for moving forward to take risks. Number one, start small. You do not have, this is the beautiful part about building a business coaching practice. You don't have to start large. And there are plenty of options where you don't have to spend 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand. I'm not saying it's a terrible thing, and if you've got that to burn, great. Do what you want to do, but you don't have to. Start small. Find ways to do that. You absolutely can take manageable risks by starting small and having an effective strategy to do that, okay? Even in our system, that this is one of the number one reasons why we do not have any type of upfront fees in our coaching program. We don't. Why? Because I believe in mitigating risk and starting small. Second thing, practical steps. You're not going to know everything. And you cannot have the attitude of frustration as you learn. It's going to take time to learn. You're going to learn systems, process, tools, and so on, relationships, how to do it well. And then when it doesn't go well, rather than being frustrated, what we want to do is to redirect that mindset and put that into the I'm learning phase. Because great coaches come from challenges and even failures. Go back to my experience with Maxwell. Do you think that he wanted only 13 people? No. Maybe you're familiar with the author John Acuff. If you're not, great guy, been a friend for years, located here in Nashville, speaks all over the world, and is a great motivational speaker and author. I highly recommend you checking out his books. The very first event that he did it in a space inside, I forgot the arena's name, in Atlanta. I mean, invited, handed out, free event, kind of like a meet and greet kind of thing. No one showed up. No one. He had a friend who was there with him to take a picture of him sitting by himself as a reminder of that moment. And he still talks about that to this day. Occasionally, he'll still post that on social media. So we want to learn from our challenges and our failures and embrace. This is the reason why the title is to embrace risk. We want to embrace failures. We want to embrace challenges. You're going to go through days, weeks, sometimes months and seasons where it just doesn't feel like it's working out. That's called life. Period. Raising kids, kind of similar, right? Marriage, kind of similar, right? Why? Because it's life. And growing any business, especially a business coaching practice, is going to have its elements. You want to embrace that, turn it around. What can I learn from it? And how can I get better? And then, lastly, trust the process. Meaning it. I mean it. Trust the process means the day that it doesn't go as well, it's like, well, not what I wanted. That wasn't fun. I'm not saying that you want to just enjoy failure. I'm not saying that you want to enjoy challenges, although I would argue that some of those that have embraced risk correctly, arguably, do understand that the challenge is necessary, and they've learned in their mindset to be able to take the challenge and pick it apart to learn from it. And the more you do that, you're going to get better and better and better, and that's where you start achieving the goals and the desires and dreams that God has planted inside you. Those who avoid risk are the ones who get bored. Those who avoid risk are the ones who kind of look back and regret. Do you want to live a life of regret? I don't. And by the way, in my 30 years of adulthood, I've got a couple of failed business ventures. Most entrepreneurs do. It's pretty normal. And I can tell you, I wouldn't be able to do what I do today if it wasn't for those failed moments. Couldn't do it. I learned so much. I still draw on what I've learned from those moments. And I'm not suggesting, look, we all want to be successful. We all want to win. We want to be winners. I'm a big believer. I love sports. Get my words out. But you look at the best teams in the world, and you're going to see failures, challenges, but they took the risk to go do it, to get up again and get up again and get up again. Okay? Learn how to embrace risk. Trust the process. Embrace those challenges and learn from them. Get around a community. Get around people who can encourage you, who's rooting for you, who's challenging you, who's praying for you. These are the things. These are the things that I'm talking to you today, that those who will embrace risk get the reward in the long run. And that's what I want to encourage you with today. If you're curious about how to start a business coaching practice, you really want to make an impact on others, you just don't have structures, systems, and processes and tools, you can go to businesscoachmastery.com. That's businesscoachmastery.com. You can get some information. We'll share with you exactly what we do and how we encourage and work with Christian men all over the country, and go from there. We can also chat if you want to talk about it. I'll explain to you how we do that very thing. Okay? Until next time, take care.